An armored SUV skids to a silent, predatory halt atop the rusted iron of a forgotten drawbridge. As the twilight deepens, a heavy steel crate is ruthlessly shoved into the jagged gap of the bridge's mechanical teeth. The engine roars, leaving behind nothing but the cold echo of metal on metal as the predator in human skin disappears. Inside that freezing iron tomb, a mother cougar huddles over her trembling cub, her ragged breath misting against the unyielding bars. Her golden eyes burn with a desperate, primal fire, but as the bridge's siren begins to scream, she realizes they aren't just trapped. They are part of the machinery of their own execution. The silence of the abandoned port is heavy, broken only by the rhythmic slapping of dark water against the rusted concrete piers. As the twilight fades into a bruised purple, the cold wind whistles through the skeletal remains of cranes and hollowed-out warehouses. In the center of this graveyard of industry sits the drawbridge, a jagged silhouette of iron and grease. Beneath its massive, waiting gears, the steel crate sits precariously. Inside, the cougar mother presses her body against the freezing metal bars, her breath coming in shallow, ragged bursts of steam. She nudges her cub deeper into the shadows of the crate, her golden eyes scanning the desolate walkway for a savior that does not come. Then, the rhythm of the night shifts. The soft thud of expensive sneakers hits the pavement. Julian, a corporate lawyer, jogs toward the bridge, his silhouette sharp in high-end athletic gear. He slows down as a low, guttural vibration reaches his ears. He stops. His eyes lock onto the steel crate wedged into the gap of the bridge. He sees the glint of the cougar's eyes. He sees the cub's tiny frame trembling. For a fleeting second, the air between them tightens with an unspoken plea for help. Julian glances at his watch. He thinks of the liability, the police reports, and the billable hours he would lose by getting involved. He adjusts his noise-canceling headphones, turning the volume higher to drown out the scratching of claws against steel. He chooses a different path, his pace quickening as he disappears into the gloom, leaving the tragedy behind him as if it were a ghost. Minutes later, a pale light flickers across the bridge. Leo, a young vlogger, approaches with a gimbal in his hand and a hunger for engagement in his eyes. He spots the crate. He doesn't call for help. Instead, he positions his smartphone, framing the cougar's desperation for the perfect vertical shot. He captures the terror, the steam from her breath, and the helplessness of the cub. He gets his content, checks the lighting, and pockets his phone with a satisfied nod. He walks away, already thinking of the caption that will bring him the most likes, leaving the living, breathing souls to their fate. We often believe these people are blind, but they aren't. They choose not to see. In a world governed by efficiency and self-preservation, seeing a tragedy is a burden most refuse to carry. Julian and Leo don't turn away because they are evil. They turn away because they are afraid of the responsibility that comes with the truth. To see is to be forced into action, and in a society that values comfort over compassion, blindness is a voluntary armor. They protect their own peace by letting the world burn just outside their peripheral vision. The paradox is haunting. These successful men, wrapped in the finest fabrics of the modern world, are the most impoverished in spirit. Their indifference is a silent executioner. By choosing not to get their hands dirty, they become the invisible hands that push the crate closer to the edge. They walk away with their reputations intact, unaware that every step they take away from the bridge is a step away from their own humanity. The bridge begins to groan, the gears waking up for their automatic cycle, and the only witnesses left are the cold stars and the rising tide. The siren erupts into a violent, rhythmic shriek. It tears through the industrial silence, vibrating against the rusted girders of the drawbridge. Deep within the bridge's gut, massive gears begin to grind. They groan under decades of neglect, lurching into motion with a sound like shattering bone. The entire structure shudders. Dust and flakes of orange rust rain down from the ceiling of the underpass as the colossal machinery wakes up. The sudden tilt of the bridge deck sends the steel crate sliding. It screeches against the metal flooring, inching toward the jagged precipice where the bridge begins to split. Inside, the Cougar mother slams against the cold bars. She doesn't roar. She is past the point of threats. She lunges across the narrow space, her body a shield of muscle and fur. With a desperate heave, she shoves her cub into the furthest, highest corner of the cage. She pins him there with her chest, her heart hammering against his small, shivering frame. She is prepared to be crushed as long as he is the last thing the world touches. We often look at polished suits and expensive watches to find reliability. We find comfort in the masks of success, convincing ourselves that our busy, productive lives grant us a higher moral standing. But here, on this vibrating deck of death, a heartbreaking paradox emerges. Those who are considered the most successful in our society are often the most impoverished in compassion. The lawyer who ran past didn't just track time on his watch, he tracked his excuses. The vlogger who filmed the struggle didn't just capture content, he captured the decay of his own empathy. They aren't traditional villains, they are simply normal people who have allowed the pursuit of status to erode their humanity. Indifference often wears the face of a busy schedule. We whisper to ourselves that it's not my problem, just to keep our consciences quiet while we move toward the next meeting or the next post. But what is the value of a gold watch or 1,000,000 followers when we witness a tragedy and do nothing but look away? When we choose to turn our backs on a life in pain, a part of our own soul dies with every receding footstep. We think our silence is neutral, but in the face of suffering, silence is a verdict. It is the final blow that sentences the innocent to the void. The bridge continues its mechanical ascent. The angle steepens. The crate now hangs halfway over the edge, swaying precariously over the churning, icy water below. One more gear rotation. One more shudder. The Cougar mother closes her eyes, pressing her forehead firmly against her cub's neck. She waits for the fall. She waits for the impact. But just as the crate reaches the point of no return, a shadow falls across the bars. A shadow that doesn't carry a phone or a watch, but a heavy pair of bolt cutters. Barnaby steps out from the gloom of the shipyard. His boots crunch on the salt-crusted gravel, a steady rhythm against the chaotic shriek of the siren. He doesn't look at the city lights. He looks up, where the steel crate tilts precariously over the abyss. He knows this bridge. He knows the weight of the silence that the runners and the vloggers left behind. In his calloused hand, he grips a small, dented tin box. It is his only wealth. Faded photographs, a lock of hair, the remnants of a life before the world decided he was invisible. The bridge lurches. The crate slides another inch toward the churning water. Barnaby doesn't hesitate. He hurls the tin into the mud. He discards his past to save a future that doesn't even belong to him. He lunges for the vibrating steel framework. His old joints protest, but adrenaline is a cruel master. He climbs. He hauls his lean frame upward as the bridge deck rises higher into the dark sky. The wind whips his white hair, stinging his eyes, but he doesn't blink. He reaches the snagged chain, the only thing keeping the crate from the plunge. The mother cougar roars. It is a terrifying, bone-chilling sound, a raw warning from a cornered predator. Barnaby doesn't flinch. He doesn't see a beast. He sees a mother. He locks eyes with her, and for a split second, the mechanical roar of the world fades. He hooks the heavy bolt cutters over the primary link. His muscles strain against the biting cold. His knuckles turn white. The gears scream as they reach the apex of their cycle. The link groans under the lethal tension. With a final, guttural shout, Barnaby throws his entire weight onto the handles. The metal snaps with a sharp crack that echoes like a gunshot across the harbor. The crate swings inward, crashing onto the stable platform of the shipyard pier with a deafening thud. Barnaby loses his footing. He slides down the embankment, his skin tearing against the jagged rust and cold stone. He doesn't stop until he hits the solid ground. He lies there, gasping for air, the taste of salt and iron on his tongue. He has lost his memories to the mud, but he has snatched 2 lives from the jaws of the machine. The bridge continues to rise, indifferent and cold, but on the pier, the silence is finally broken by a low, grateful chuff. Barnaby leads the shivering pair into the shadowed sanctuary of his shipyard workshop. The air here is thick with the scent of old grease and sea salt, a sanctuary built from the wreckage of a forgotten life. He doesn't cage them. He doesn't chain them. He simply moves in the dim light, his hands steady as he prepares a meager meal of scraps. The mother cougar watches him, her golden eyes reflecting the flicker of a single lamp. She doesn't growl. In the silence of the docks, she recognizes a rhythm that the city outside has long since forgotten. He kneels beside her, his movements slow and deliberate. He wipes the oil and grime from her matted fur. As he reaches her neck, his hand freezes. There, hidden beneath a layer of dust, is a charred mark, a serial number, the jagged logo of the very corporation that stripped him of his dignity decades ago. The same machine that fired him for exposing their illegal trade now tried to crush this mother and her cub under the weight of its gears. This city didn't just throw away a steel crate, it threw away everything it deemed a reject. The Cougar is a broken toy of the elite. Barnaby is a ghost of the pavement. Their bond under this rusted roof is not built on food or taming. It is the recognition of the exiled. The Cougar doesn't stay because she is captured. She stays because she smells the same scent on him, the scent of abandonment. When she finally presses her heavy head against Barnaby's chest, the boundary between predator and prey vanishes. They are 2 phantoms sharing a secret language of scars, finding warmth in a world that turned cold. Barnaby wasn't always a shadow in a shipyard. He was once a father, a husband with a house full of laughter before the corporation's betrayal took it all. He didn't choose the streets because he was lazy. He chose them because he could no longer breathe in a world that valued profit over people. His only treasure was the tin box he let sink into the river to free, his hands for the rescue. To Barnaby, losing his past was a small price to pay to save the only thing he had left, his humanity. He didn't save these animals for a reward or a headline. He saved them because he saw himself in that crate, discarded, despised, and desperate for a way out. As he strokes the mother's scarred neck, he isn't just healing a beast, he is reclaiming the broken pieces of his own heart. In the darkness of the underpass, the strangest family the docks have ever seen is born. They share the same concrete, the same water, and the same fierce will to survive against a world that wants them gone. Barnaby watches the cub play at his feet and finally smiles. A man who has nothing, yet possesses everything Julian and Leo will never understand. Barnaby sits in the dim light of his workshop, his hand resting on the mother cougar's scarred neck. He knows this sanctuary of grease and salt is only a temporary reprieve. The city is a cage, even without bars, and he refuses to let them become another set of statistics. He picks up the phone. He makes the call that will shatter his heart to save their lives. Justice moves swiftly when the world is watching. Days later, the law descends on the shadows. Victoria is intercepted at her private estate, her armored SUV a silent witness to her cold-blooded crimes. The corporation's illegal trade is dragged into the piercing light of the public eye. The villain crumbles, but Barnaby isn't there to witness her fall. He has a mountain to climb. The convoy reaches the base of the Sierra Nevada as the first light of dawn breaks over the peaks. The air here is crisp, biting, and smells of ancient pine, a world away from the suffocating oil of the docks. The rangers slide back the heavy transport door. The mother cougar steps out first, her muscles rippling under her dusty coat. She tastes the freedom in the wind. The cub bounds past her, a streak of golden energy against the pristine snow. Barnaby stands by the jeep, his old coat fluttering in the mountain breeze. He watches them, his chest tight with a pain sharper than any hunger. He realizes that human love is often a selfish thing. We want to own beauty to fill our own voids. We want to cage what we admire. But under those shipyard rafters he understood a deeper truth. To truly love a soul is to have the courage to let it walk away. He pushes them toward the wild, firms his resolve, and whispers his final goodbye. He smiles through the ache because he knows they are finally royalty again. Before disappearing into the tree line, the mother cougar stops. She turns back. She locks eyes with the man who threw his only memories into the mud to pull her from the gears of death. For a long, profound moment, the wild and the weary share a final connection. She dips her majestic head in a single, solemn bow, a recognition of a savior. Then they vanish into the green, returning to the world where they belong. Barnaby returns to the concrete jungle, but he is no longer a ghost. With the global support poured in for the Guardian of the Depths, he establishes a foundation to protect the voiceless from the machines of men. He proves that you don't need a mansion to have a heart, and you don't need money to change the world. What would you have done if you saw that crate on the bridge? Would you have looked away to protect your peace, or would you have stepped into the gears to save a life? Let us know in the comments below. If this story touched your soul, please like and subscribe to help us share the message that every life is worth saving.